nochmal für die Einladung, die Gelegenheit und die nette Einführung. Also dieser Impuls hat wirklich gewirkt und ist, seitdem ich es damals gesehen habe, wirklich hat mich die ständig begleitet und ich habe Impulse genommen und sie mit dem, womit ich beschäftigt bin, verbunden. Aber ich wollte, ich sage jetzt nicht so viel, weil ich das jetzt auch gerade getimt habe, dass es auch 15 Minuten sind, also es sind eigentlich 16,5. Aber ich wollte nur noch mal sagen, dass es Zitate gibt und sie kommen von Achille Mbembe. Und das ist Sie haben ihn vielleicht da gesehen, diese Yale Lectures, The Idea of a Borderless World. Und das sind die Tanner Lectures on Human Values, Yale University. Und Sie werden vielleicht seine Stimme erkennen. Auch habe ich Zitate von Anne-Laura Stoller, von dem in 2016 erschienenen Buch Duress, Imperial Durabilities in Our Time. Und es kommt aus dem Kapitel A Deadly Embrace, Colony and Camp. Das ist so eine Sache, mit der ich mich jetzt momentan sehr stark beschäftige. Und es gibt noch ein Zitat von Bertel Oman, The Utopian Visions of the Future, Then and Now, a Marxist Critique.
It allows us to plot a geopolitical topography that joined policies, visions, institutions and practices directed at the containment of people, the strategies of displacement, the definitions of security, the tactics of defense, and not least the ever-present doubts about what combination and balance of restrictions and license would work best. Together, they make up what I call the emergent nexus of the imperial modern. I take the imperial modern as an heuristic to understand that global regimes of security and the management of colonies share a deep temporal and spatial history of their own. But it is also to insist that the concentrated containments and voluntary enclosures are the Janus face of imperial logics and the anxious sensibilities they nourish, and with which they must then contend. Anne-Laura Stoller, 2016.
So in the classical liberal model I was referring to, security and freedom, precisely because of the racial border, which some of us are particularly interested in, security and freedom came to be defined as a right of exclusion. Order within that model is about securing the unequal ordering of property relations. That's what it is. And asserting the boundaries of the nation goes hand in hand in that model with the assertion of the boundaries of race.
Achille Mbembe, 2018. The exclusionary principles and practices of liberalism have come under scrutiny for some time as the foundation of British Empire. Today, it is the exterminating and genocidal colonial policies that are seen to have provided the precursors, incubators and models for the technologies and visions that have been the cornerstone of European nation-states. German policies in Africa, it has been argued, were preparation for the Holocaust, rendering it not a unique event, but part of what Sven Lindqvist, among others, now identifies as a common European heritage. Stoller, 2016. Colony and camp make up a co-joined conceptual matrix, twin formations that give rise to social deformations with different effects. A colony criminalizes dissidents, disassembles and punishes those who refuse its terms, and suppresses contestatory and participatory politics. It produces and identifies enemies within and outside, eagerly invests in the hunt for those targeted as a threat, anxiously celebrates the ever-false and short-lived security that follows the repeated rites of capture. Stoller, 2016. Pursing them extends and reconfigures Foucault's founding concept in Discipline and Punish, the carceral archipelago, in time and place across a broader imperial map that rebinds the genealogies of penal colonies, settler colonies, detention camps in France and Algeria, a prison in Philadelphia, poor colonies in the Dutch countryside, Russian orphanages, camps that were refitted as sites for potential colonial settlers, and failed settler colonies that were militarized with soldiers as settlers. Each marks zones of exclusion and enclosure through mutations rather than correspondence, through filiations rather than fixities, through urgent and partial borrowings, through congruences sought rather than through discretely marked relations. Stoller, 2016.
Where are we today? It seems to me that worldwide, the combination of fast capitalism, and we mentioned it yesterday, the saturation of the everyday by digital and computational technologies, these two things have led to the acceleration of speed and the intensification of connections. In fact, the world is so connected today. Today, basically, you can sit where you are, you have access to new technologies, and you have access to an amount of knowledge we have never had access to. That is going on. At the same time, willful ignorance is a feature of our times. How come we know so less when the amount of knowledge we have has never been as astounding as it is?
Mbembe, 2018. Imperial formations, as I've argued elsewhere, create new subjects that must be relocated to be productive, dispossessed to be modern, disciplined to be independent, converted to be human, stripped of old cultural bearings to be citizens, coerced to be free. These geographic arrangements are fundamental to defining and maintaining the racial distributions and durabilities of imperial duress today. Stoller, 2016.
Think too of the Code de l'Indigène in French colonial Africa, of the Bantustans and labor reserves in Southern Africa, and of the Castrol industrial complex in today's United States of America. In each instance, to be African and to be black has meant to be consigned to one or the other of the many spaces of confinement modernity invented. The scramble for Africa in the 19th century and the carving of its boundaries along colonial lines turned the continent into a massive carceral space, and each of us into a potential illegal migrant, unable to move except under increasingly punitive conditions. As a matter of fact, entrapment became the precondition for the exploitation of our labor, which is why the struggles for emancipation and racial upliftment were so intertwined with the struggles for the right to move freely.
Mbembe, 2018. One of the more productive later terms Foucault used to define it was réseau, network, a heterogeneous ensemble of institutions, discourses, architectural forms, scientific statements, moral and philanthropic propositions. A dispositif is not a steady state. It is marked by constant readjustment of different elements that surface at various points, a perpetual process of strategic elaboration. Its key feature is plasticity, an interplay of shifts of position and modifications of function, which can vary widely. Stoller, 2016.
So, I put forward this renewed idea in the hope that this renewed planetary consciousness might force us to address the questions I was putting forward yesterday. Whose earth is this? Rather than whose country is this? How do we distribute it, meaning not how we conquer it for ourselves, but meaning how do we share it? How do we share it? Because sharing it is the very condition of its sustainability.
Mbembe, 2018. But dreamers are not utopians, only dreamers. They become utopians by adopting a mode of thinking in which dreams, hopes, and intuitions play a bigger role in constructing their vision of the future than their analysis of the present, and I would add, of the past. Bertel Ollman, 2005.